Hello, everybody, and thank you for joining us for today's BU Industry Insiders webinar, Bringing Your Personal Passion into Work for Sustainable Innovation. My name is Jeff Murphy, and I'm a member of the Career Programs team in the Office of Alumni Relations at Boston University. Today's webinar is sponsored by Boston University Alumni Relations and is offered to our 326,000 alumni around the globe. Throughout your career, BU is committed to helping you define and achieve your professional goals. We aim to do this by providing alumni with access to a series of valuable online tools and social media communities. I know that we have alumni joining us today from places far away like Beirut, Kings Mountain, North Carolina, North Bergen, New Jersey, Madison, Wisconsin, Simi Valley, California, Buffalo Grove, Illinois, and as always, dozens of Massachusetts alumni from towns like Franklin, Westfield, Reading, Medford, Allston, and more. For each and every one of you out there, please know that we really do value your opinion on this program and every program we offer. Before I introduce today's speaker, some brief housekeeping notes. As you know by now, this webinar is being offered on the Adobe Connect online meeting platform. If you experience any trouble with the audio or visual portions of today's presentation, I'll ask that you please contact Adobe Connect directly at 1-800-422-3623. Today's presentation is being recorded and will soon be made available for on-demand viewing on the Alumni Association website found at www.bu.edu/alumni. Our speaker today is very eager to answer any questions you may have, and you're welcome to submit them throughout the presentation using the Q&A chat box you should see at the bottom of your screen. We hope to get to as many questions as we can during today's webinar. It's now my pleasure to introduce our speaker for the day, Questrom School of Business alumnus Frank LaRusso. Frank is the Vice President of Strategic Partnerships for Mars Drinks, a Mars Incorporated company. Frank began his 26-year career with Mars Incorporated in the M&M Mars Snack Food Group, where he held various positions in sales and marketing. Following his time in the snack food business, Frank led the project team that analyzed the U.S. coffee market to consider bringing the drinks division to North America. As a result of this research, the company launched the Flavia Beverage Systems business unit, now Mars Drinks, in 1995. Frank helped establish Flavia Beverage Systems and the Flavia brand in North America. In addition to being the first associate of Mars Drinks in the United States, Frank is one of the only Mars associates to ever have received the Global Make a Difference Final Award twice. He received this honor first for his work with coffee growing families in El Salvador, and second for launching new global drinks brands. Prior to joining Mars, Frank began his career at Guinness Brewing Company, working and living in London, England. Frank has an extensive marketing and management background and holds a BSBA from Boston University, an MBA from Drexel, and an MDC from Cornell in management development. Frank, thank you so much for being here today. You have told me quite a bit about your story that you're about to share with our audience. It's a really impressive and interesting path and career that you've taken. I'm going to get your slide deck up and running, and then the floor is all yours.
Thank you so much, Jeff, and welcome everyone. I thought maybe one of the first things we could do is bring that first question over and get a sense of the concentration of the audience so I can kind of see where you're all coming from. So if you can quickly look at this question, it's basically saying what area is your main concentration now? Is it marketing, sales, finance, strategy, HR, operations, supply? Are you a student, or maybe it's other? Really help me understand.
Frank, are you seeing those results coming in? It obviously
yes,
takes
absolutely. Seconds. Right now, see those. Fantastic. Great. Nice combination. Okay. Well, first let me start by saying this. None of this would have actually happened if it wasn't for Boston University, because I went when I was a senior at BU. I went to a job fair in 1991, and interestingly enough, at that job fair, all these companies had beautiful booths, except for one company just had a table with M&Ms and Snickers on it. Because back in 1991, this company called Mars really was a very, very private company. In fact, you were lucky if you could find one article on our company. That is significantly changed, as we are now telling our story a lot more through the lens of many different formats, one of them being the Great Place to Work Institute. And I started on this first slide here to show you the symbol. So Mars participates in this Great Place to Work survey now, not only in the US, but all over the world. And the last Great Place to Work global study ranked Mars now the #4 best place to work in the world. And in some countries, like Australia, we're the #1 place to work. And a lot of that comes from when to get on this list, it comes from a culture audit and a trust index that the actual associates, that's what we call our employees, associates, they actually take this. And as a result of that, that's how you get on this rating. Just a little history before I get into my story. If you look at this next slide, what makes up Mars Incorporated? So we're over a 100-year-old company, and we have now 5 global segments. The first 2 have been recently combined, the chocolate and gum. You're most familiar with these brands that make up the Mars Wrigley Confectionery Group. We have a pet care division. We have a food division that makes Uncle Ben's. We have the Mars Drinks division, which was actually started by John Mars. And we have our Symbioscience division. Many of you probably think that what makes up the bulk of Mars Incorporated is our Mars Wrigley and Confectionery business, but it's actually pet care. We are actually the world's largest pet care company in the world, and we own veterinary hospitals like Banfield, that's in a lot of PetSmarts, and we just recently acquired VCA Pest Hospitals. So it's a very diverse company. But this company that I work for, and the story I'm going to tell you really comes from the principles that are underneath the foundation of this organization. So when the Great Place to Work Institute did that cultural audit and trust index, these 5 principles are what actually scream out in terms of what makes us unique as a company. These 5 principles, if you look at them, quality, responsibility, mutuality, efficiency, and freedom. I'd like Jeff to bring over this next question. Which of those 5 principles do you think makes Mars Incorporated unique? You could just take a quick poll there. So is it quality, is it responsibility, mutuality, efficiency, or freedom? So I can see that a good chunk of you are rating the freedom principle and mutuality principle and the quality principle. I see those 3 popping out. So let me tell you what's behind that. So when you think about companies that are, there aren't a lot of companies on the earth that are 100 years old, right? So to be a 100-year-old company and to thrive, you've got to have as a base quality, responsibility, and efficiency. But it really is the combination of the mutuality principle, where we have this shared benefit across our supply chain and our customers, and our freedom principle that really makes Mars unique. And that's something that was shared to me by leaders of our organization, like our global president, Grant Reed, and our now global president of Mars Wrigley Confectionery, Martin Radvan. It's that combination of mutuality and freedom that really separate us. And what that means is we're not on Wall Street, so we don't have Wall Street breathing down our neck. It doesn't mean that we're not responsible for our stakeholders, which is the family. But what we do is from the freedom principle, with no debt, we can make the long call on innovation. And Mars Drinks, the division that I work for, the division I helped set up here in the U.S., in North America, is an example of that because it took many, many years for this division to become profitable. It probably wouldn't have existed in another company because they would have let it go after 3 if it was publicly traded. Go to this next slide. This whole talk that I'm going to go through is around sustainable innovation. And the first thing I wanted to talk to you about is finding the catalyst, that lever, that spark, that thing that really helps you find sustainable innovation within your life and in your career. What I want to share with you is you have to fall in love with the product or service that you're working with. My mentors in this business would say you have to think about what you're good at, what you want to do, and what the business needs. And when you can find where those 3 circles are coming together, that's when magic occurs. And if you look at this business that I'm in now, Mars Drinks, just to give you a sense of this as I go through the story of sustainable innovation, we make this product. You can see this pack. We were actually a company that was the first to develop a single-serve pack that brews freshly brewed coffee, leaf tea, hot chocolate, one serving at a time from these packs directly into a cup. We actually invented this pack in 1982, 1983 in London, England, and we were way ahead of all the other companies that you see today on the market that are doing these single serve cup type products, way before all of those. And what was interesting about this is back in 1995, after I'd spent a couple years in chocolate, and I literally started off of the BU campus right at the beginning, placing chocolate in displays and shelves in supermarkets, learning the business from that ground level. But after about 5 years of growing within the chocolate business, there was an opportunity to interview to do a project to go over to London, England, and see if this product would be a fit in the U.S. I was given the opportunity. I was 26 years old at the time. Went over to England, learned this business, and helped establish it here in the U.S. As associate number one for this business unit. But right from day one, I fell in love. Like I said, the catalyst, the lever. I fell in love with this product because when I cut it open and looked inside what was in this fresh ground coffee and tea, there was a question in my mind that's related to that mutuality principle, which is, where did this coffee come from? Where did that tea come from? That was a critical thing because a lot of us in our careers, we're selling products or services and we have a view of what we have. Right back in the beginning, I had that view of where did it come from and where did it go? And you'll see that throughout this presentation. So in that search of asking the question, where did that coffee come from? I went to, right in the beginning, I went to the partners that we had in this division, which were some of our initial distributors. Two of them in particular, one of them was Coffee Ambassador out in San Diego, Sean Curtis, the owner. The other Associated Services out in San Francisco, Tom Stuber, the owner. And this was back just after we'd started the business. I asked the both of them, how can I understand where this coffee comes from? How can I understand even greater what is involved in putting this product into our pack? They said to me, you need to meet Mr. Miyagi of coffee, the godfather of coffee. So if any of you saw The Karate Kid, you'll remember Mr. Miyagi teaching The Karate Kid. The Mr. Miyagi, godfather of coffee, is a man by the name of Ted Lingle. He used to run the Specialty Coffee Association of America. He's now part of the Global Coffee Quality Institute. And back in around 2003, I asked Mr. Miyagi, Ted Lingle, where did this coffee come from? So I showed you a chart previous. It's grown between the tropics of Cancer and Capricorn. And in 2003, our business had about 700 associates globally. The interesting thing is, of the 700 associates we had in the business back in 2003, maybe one of them had ever been to an origin where we got our coffee from or where we got our tea from. We mainly bought it from suppliers that we trusted. I wasn't satisfied with that. I was a sales and marketing guy that wanted to know, where did this product come from? And I asked Mr. Miyagi, Ted Lingle, teach me, show me. He said, well, you got to come with me to Latin America, and I'll take you to Costa Rica. And if you look on this map, he took me to all those little colored regions, and I actually brought the Costa Rica pack that we had with me, and he showed me all the different regions that coffee is grown in this one particular country. If you think about it, this is part of that, why is Mars the fourth best company to work for in the world? This is part of that trust index. Here I am, an associate, junior in the business, asking my line manager, can I go to a different part of the world and see where we get our raw material? Not very typical in a company. And not very typical in this time, when sustainability was just starting to become popular. So what I learned very early on, linked actually to our principles, is that quality of our product starts right at the farm level. A lot of the products that we make, whether it's a Snickers bar or M&Ms or Three Musketeers or Uncle Ben's products or even our pet cares, a lot of them are recipes of different products making that one particular product or SKU that you're selling. When it comes to coffee, you've got one ingredient, coffee. When it comes to tea, it's tea. So to get it to taste right, one of the critical things about the quality of our product is where do you get it from? And when you get to understand where coffee comes from, many of you may or may not know this, but it actually comes from a fruit. And both coffee and chocolate are grown both between that Tropic of Cancer and Capricorn, and they have to be picked at the ripest red to be the best quality. Less than 25% of the coffee drunk, throughout the world every day is what would be considered specialty coffee, the best coffee. Most of the coffee consumed around the world is not specialty coffee, and it is coffee that looks like Skittles, basically. And that's what it shouldn't look like. Coffee should never, when it gets picked, look like what you're seeing on the right picture here. A whole bunch of red, green, yellow. No, it should be that either really bright red or there's another strand of a really bright yellow it should be. And if it's not that, it's not considered, a real specialty beverage. And one of the things that I got to learn early on is who are these coffee farmers that are picking? Because it's all manually picked. And this is where the sustainable innovation thing starts to come up. So again, it started from that first thing, the lever, the catalyst of asking the question, where did it come from? You get to meet these coffee farmers who are moms, daughters, sisters, and they work only 3 months a year. And they have to raise a family. So that's going to lead now to the next attribute of being authentically sustainable. So the first was, the falling in love with the product and finding your Mr. Miyagi. The second is, how do you bring what's in your life outside of work into work? So we all have a heart, we all have compassion, and one of the things that you find out when you realize that the second most heavily traded commodity in the world, which is employing so many people, are only working for 3 months, there's a byproduct of that 9 months of unemployment. That byproduct are many, many children that are abandoned. So almost every single coffee region in the world, you will find that those coffee growing families can't afford their children many times. And in 2008, another one of our partners from Royal Cup Coffee, beautiful lady Carol Lindsay, introduced me to a woman, Marcella, from Coex Coffee in El Salvador, which is owned by the Alvarez family. And they were able to introduce me to an orphanage in Cincinnati, El Salvador, back in 2008, where I was able to hear the story of 85 different children that were, like the baby in the bottom left corner, was literally left at the doorstep of this orphanage the day before I got there. So many of these children either abused sexually, mentally, or found in garbage cans in the local region. This is a very common story in coffee growing areas of the world, where the families that are only working for 3 months can't afford to take care of their children. So you could imagine my life outside of work, all of a sudden, my heart was getting tough. And I thought something needed to be done. So, sorry, too far there. So when I went down there in 2008, I brought some fellow Mars associates with me. We came back. We started to create some fundraising efforts that engaged other associates within our division. We started to do bike races from Philadelphia to New Jersey. We started to do local fundraising activities. And something that our Mars business does, which is really, really unique to us and part of our culture, is every 2 to 3 years, we have this, what we call Make the Difference, which Jeff had talked about earlier. And in 2009, the Mars Incorporated company had gotten over 20,000 applications from around the world for all different projects done by all of our associates around the world. And they had a new category called People in the Community, where Mars was actually recognizing associates for the work that they were doing outside of their workplace, where they were bringing the community outside of the workplace into the workplace in some unique way. And I had the blessing to win that global award. So 20,000 plus applications, down to 15 given this honor globally. And that bottom right picture there, you can see with some of the Mars members receiving that. And that was a group effort, big time for me to be able to get something like that. Now, After that, doesn't stop with something like that. You're naturally, this continued to be a personal mission of mine outside of work. So this wasn't really officially incorporated into work. It was recognized by work as a community activity, but not officially linked as of yet. And every year I would go down, sometimes even bring fellow Mars associates. If you look at the top right corner, that's our global CFO that came with me. She paid her own way to come with me to be part of it. And some of the things that we started to do down in this orphanage was build a digital classroom, which you can see in the bottom left. This was also done in partnership with one of our customers, Microsoft. And what we do now every year, and we started doing in 2010, is with my daughter's music teacher, Christy Jefferson. We actually Skype in the orphanage, and we sing to them, and they sing to us, and we raise money to help do things at that orphanage. One of the first things we did was help build that digital classroom. And every year, as we bring those different fundraising projects to them, I take the time with them to teach them about this industry that they're in, or that they came from, or their parents came from. And when I go down there, I ask the children, how many of you want to go into the coffee business? And very few of them will raise their hand, if any. So, and you think about here in America, and around the world, the coffee business is a very lucrative business, but to the coffee growing families and their children, it's not a lucrative career for them. So I try to teach them about what could be done for this to be a lucrative. And we have a sister unit called Seeds of Change that makes organic seeds. They have a garden at the orphanage that actually grows about 20% of the food that the children eat. We help them grow that food. We help them plant the seeds. And that's just another picture of that type of activity. When you're doing this type of activity, and you start to bring your life outside of work into work, things happen that are not a coincidence. And this is a great story I wanted to share with you. These things happen because of that. So in 2013, I had taken some of the children out to a coffee farm, and I took the abandoned coffee trees, and I shared with them a story. These are abandoned coffee trees that didn't get planted, that weren't being nourished, that weren't being watered, that weren't being taken care of, um, much like themselves before they were in an orphanage. But then once you plant these abandoned plants and you take care of them, they can flourish just like them. And in 2016, which was last year, when I went back to that farm, I saw a sign which you see on the bottom, and I see a logo at the top right, which is the Starbucks logo. And interestingly enough, the same year, we had just partnered with Starbucks. Go to find that the plants that we had planted in 2013 that were abandoned were now producing the fruit that was going into the Starbucks packs that were going through our Mars drink system. You just can't make stuff like that up. And that's what makes this stuff really special. So that's a lot about, a singular effort and an effort of a couple of associates that had supported me along the way. But to really get this thing to be amplified and to go to its next level, what it really takes to drive real engagement around sustainability is to recruit ambassadors. In 2015, and this is something that I encourage all of you to do, whether it's at your school or at your place of work, a lot of the companies that we work for or that we work with, they have their own websites and they have a lot of stories of things that they do. And many times I read our own website just to see the stories of the activities that we're doing around the world. And one story I stumbled upon was one of our global sustainability directors, who's in this picture, purple shirt. His name is Richard Bond. I noticed a story that he was actually going to El Salvador to help support the World Coffee Research Foundation because there was a coffee rust disease affecting coffee plants, which create that little browning on the leaves, which affect the yield of these leaves to produce fruit in those coffee trees. And he made it a point to link our business to the World Coffee Research Foundation. And when I found that he was doing this, I called him up and I said, Richard, could you please, while you're doing this work for World Coffee Research, go and visit this orphanage? He was a little bit skeptical at first, but he said he would absolutely visit. And on the day that he went to go visit that orphanage, I got on my knees and I prayed because I asked, please let him see and feel what I had seen since 2008. And he did. And he shared with me how much it meant to him. And this is now when a activity outside of work all of a sudden now becomes linked to what we're doing at work. We have this thing called the Mars Ambassador Program, where we send associates from around the world, from different units, to different projects around the world. And Richard was responsible for the Mars Ambassador Program for El Salvador, where the first part of the week they work at the World Coffee Research Foundation. The last part of the week they come with and visit with me to help me with projects at the orphanage. This is an incredible program that we have called the Mars Ambassador Program. I've been reading recently some stories about what we've done, for example, in Indonesia, where we buy a lot of our cocoa, and we're rebuilding a coral reef. And I was very curious, why are we rebuilding a coral reef? And ambassadors are going there to build a coral reef because it's the fish that are feeding the cocoa farmers. Because of what we've done there, not only are the fish back to feed the cocoa farmers, but whale shark have now showed up. So there's now a new tourism industry. So these types of things, when you have a true, authentic, innovative, sustainable platform in your business, take your personal life and connect it to it, it really gets it amplified. And I really can't thank our business enough for attaching the work that I've done with the orphanage. And the first year that the ambassadors came down, 2015, the first 7 of them, again from different Mars units, different parts of the world, they came with me and we rebuilt a kitchen and a laundry room. When we came and we had a celebration of that activity, those 7 ambassadors wanted to take the children to the beach for a day. Because a lot of them, this little courtyard you see here is the total amount of space children from ages 1 all the way to 15. That's their amount of space they get to play in. Because they're on a road that's pretty dangerous there in El Salvador. They get locked down. So to go to the beach is a privilege. And when we took them to the beach, if you look on the bottom left, we took them in that van you see. And the door actually was coming off the van and the tires were literally popping off. And those initial 7 ambassadors said, when we get back, we want to help this orphanage get a new van. Which the new set of ambassadors for 2016 helped achieve. Along with the support of COEX family and the Alvarez family that supported this, we were able to get them a new van. But the main purpose of this van is to go pick up those children up in the mountains so they can come to the orphanage to also get schooled as well. So this has been a big project for them. And last year when we delivered the van, those 7 ambassadors said, what do we do next? I said, well, let me find out from the children themselves. And if you look on the far right, you can see this young lady. Her name is Rosillo. And in 2008, she actually was as high as my knee. Back in 2008, she actually asked me to take her home at that time. You could imagine what it's like when there's 85 children asking you to take them home. And you can't. It's kind of difficult. It takes about 3 years to make that happen. So here she is, now in 2016, and I'm asking her, what's going on in her life. And the room she sleeps in with 15 other girls has a window that looks out to a volcano called Santa Ana. And I looked at her and I looked at the volcano and I said to her, come with me. We're going to go to the top of that volcano. So we hiked all the way up 5 hours later. Came back down. She'd never done that before. None of the other kids had ever done that before. And I looked at her and I said, you just did that. You could do anything. And the bond that she and I established was pretty close. She even asked me to be her godfather. And I did a ceremony down there with her, which was very, very special. I don't speak Spanish, but I use Google Translate to speak to her. And I asked her the question, Rosillo, we've done all this stuff. You've seen me since 2008, but what do you really need here? And the answer she gave me kind of shocked me. She said, we need water. And it blew me away because every time I've been there, I just assumed that they had the water they needed. And if you think about us on this call, when we get up in the morning and we take a shower, we turn the faucet on, the water's there. We go to get a drink, it's there. For them, it's not always there. In fact, it's only there for 1 hour a day most of the time. So this became the next project for the ambassadors from 2016. And just recently, we converted our entire office here in Westchester, Pennsylvania, into a coffee house, and we did that Skyping in, and we had a karaoke event on our side, and we had the children on the other side to raise the money to take a manual process they were doing to try to hit water and bring them what they needed to have a sustainable water solution. I'm happy to say that this past weekend we had that event. We've exceeded that goal. So we've raised over $14,500, which is what we needed to do for this. And it happened because the first 7 ambassadors from 2015, the ambassadors from 2016, and the ambassadors for this year, so 21 total ambassadors, all their friends and family from 3 different parts of the world, all did projects similar to our coffee house. And on Monday of this week, so this is live, these machines showed up at that orphanage to begin drilling. Now they're drilling on the side of Santa Ana volcano, so it's not safe, it's not easy, and that's exactly what it's looking like this week. This was taken this week. So we have high hopes that we're going to hit water. You can contact me at the end, and I'll let you know when we do, because I believe that we will. I will know that we will because of all the past faith and coming through to fruition that's come with all the people that have supported us. But I want to now show you again, I shared with you this fall in love with your product and authentic sustainable innovation. And when you look at our sustainability strategy at Mars Drinks, I've shared with you the far left part of it, where we get our product from. Got a deep passion for understanding that, and you can see all the work that's come from that. But I've had an equal passion on the right side, which is, where does our product go? In the middle, there's beautiful stories. You can read them online about all the things we do to have, zero landfill waste and how we have wind energy supplying all the energy for all the Mars plants in the U.S. But really, when you look at the right side, the left side and the beginning part of the story is, where did our product come from? And I fell in love with that. But I also wanted to fall in love with, where does it go? And if you look at here, this picture, sorry about that. We actually work with a company called TerraCycle in Trenton, New Jersey, that can actually take our coffee packets. They take the coffee and tea and use it for compost for farming. But we can actually convert those packs to polypropylene pellets and make things like garden beds or benches out of our packaging. And one of the things that I think is really important is, again, life outside of work, bringing into work. On Take Your Kid to Work Day, I brought my 10-year-old daughter to TerraCycle to meet the founder, Tom Sacchi, so that we both could see what's actually happening with this sustainable process. And as a result of meetings that we've had with Tom and his team, we've done some really innovative things. Like, if you look at here at Campbells headquarters in Camden, New Jersey, we actually are recycling all their coffee that they use from our packs to make bike racks made out of our packs, and they're raffling off a bike to support that initiative. If you can look to the far right of this picture, on Earth Day, at MasterCard's headquarters in Purchase, we created a park made out of their coffee, and similar with Johnson & Johnson in Bridgewater, New Jersey, those benches and the garbage can are made out of the coffee from our system at those headquarters. Those are just some stories from just Mars Drinks. But if you were to go online right now and type in Mars Sustainable in a Generation, you'll see that we're doing much more than that, and that we've committed ourselves to this new project called Sustainable in a Generation. And you'll hear stories about, we've got the science, we've got the data to do the things that you've seen that I've shared with you now, but this is a call to arms for all of us on this call, all of us in school, all of us in industry. When you look at the origin of the word company, it's the Latin derivative cumpanis. It means company, comes from the word cumpanis, which means with bread. And the first companies on this earth were merchants that sat around in a circle. They broke bread, They talked about what could they do to help the community around them. And that's really about what I'm trying to share with you here is when you start to ignite that desire to work with each other, we can take what we've done, go much further and be sustainable in a generation because we've got generations that are coming after us that we want to leave with a healthy planet. We want to have people that are thriving in their careers, in their livelihood. We want them to be well and nourished. I wanted to um, end with this and then take some questions, but I shared with you a couple things, right? Um, I've been told a story, that a mustard seed is about the size of the top of a pin. If you plant a mustard seed at the base of rock, plant it and take care of it, it can move rock. So the question that we need to be asking ourselves is, where do we plant that next seed in our life? And who do we plant it with? And I can ask Jeff to bring over the questions, the third set of questions here, you all. Is of all that I talked about, what are the concepts that you think you're going to take into your role today? Or what do you think is going to help you create the sustainable innovation in your life? I'm just curious, falling in love with your product and finding your Mr. Miyagi, finding your ambassadors to accelerate, bringing your work-life balance into place by bringing your life into work, or is it all three? Seeing looks like all three is winning out. That's what I was expecting. Fantastic. Well, I can't thank Boston University enough. They've been a big part of my life. I wouldn't be at Mars if it wasn't for them. Thoughts, concepts, or questions.
Frank, I think we lost your audio just as you were saying some words of thanks.
Oh, sorry about that. I was just going to say thank you to Boston University because if it wasn't for them, I wouldn't have the career I have today. And thank you for the Alumni Association putting this type of forum together. And I'm here to answer any questions. So if you want to ask any questions, Jeff.
Awesome. Frank, thanks for sharing your story. It's really, really interesting. Sorry, I'm talking over you there.
Yep.
Frank, we have one question from Jessica that
questions.
came in relatively early, and asking it, I would ask all of our participants to go ahead and type your questions for Frank into the Q&A chat box at the bottom of your screen. Frank, Jessica's question, before you started talking about sort of Mars's overall strategy, she was glad to see that you eventually started talking about Mars's overall strategy, and it left me wondering, obviously your own personal story of taking your own personal interests and your personal values and ingratiating them with the work that you're doing. Do you think that overall, Mars's sustainability strategy really is kind of centered around giving people like yourself that sense of kind of an entrepreneurial spirit to do projects like these, to find those connections? Or could you just talk a little bit more about how your own work fits into sort of the overall sustainability strategy?
Yeah, if you I was talking to you earlier about that Make the Difference program that Mars uses to recognize activities around the world, and literally there's now there's over 25 to 26,000 applications, and one of the categories is planet and sustainability in that area, and there are thousands of Frank-like stories where people have taken their personal passion, their personal values. They've, whether it's, created an adoption program for pets, or whether it's something in their local community to help feed the homeless, or something for underprivileged individuals, and linking, the site, their work, some sort of activity, their customers, um, to a sustainability plan has been the bedrock. And I think, you see it every 2 to 3 years when we have that, and I do feel very blessed that we have a company that embraces that and welcomes that. And I think it has a lot to do with why we received that ranking and why we're thriving.
Frank, I think we're continuing to have some struggles with your audio, but I think that we caught you right until the end of your answer there. One question that's come in from Jack. He's asking if you could just elaborate a little bit more about the falling in love with your product. What do you think are the key things that need to happen, or the strategies to fall in love with your product? If it's something, if you work at a place that you're not really able to find a personal connection to something.
Okay, that's a great question, and I'll answer that in two ways. For me personally, you've got a product, whether it's our chocolate or coffee or tea. It's Yeah, of course you want to become a customer of it, and you want to consume it, and you want to enjoy it. But the thing is, what impact does your product have, or what impact does it have on someone's life? So for us, we're the only beverage company in the world that sells our beverages into workplaces. You can't buy our beverages for your home. And what we find is that, you're falling in love, you figure out, so where does our beverage go? So when you look at meetings at a company, or you look at break rooms in a company, falling in love is like, so what's the life cycle of your product and where it's being consumed? And in the workplace, when people are consuming our product, they're meeting other individuals, they're collaborating on new ideas, and they're keeping themselves alert. So you think about a pharmaceutical company that is one of our biggest customers. They're drinking coffee in a break, and they're also working on a project to cure a certain disease. We're playing a role in that. And that's how you're falling in love with your product. And I want to answer that in a second way, in that I met the president of the Mayo Clinic at one of the Great Place to Work conferences. And he was showing a video of employees at the Mayo Clinic who fell in love with what they do. So, you got the natural videos of the doctors and the nurses and the caretakers. But in one of the hospital rooms, there was a janitor. And the video panned in on the janitor. And the interviewer said, "So what do you do here?" Expecting to hear, "I'm a janitor." No, this janitor said, "I'm here to save lives. Because if I can reduce the germs in this room, I will make sure that the people in this hospital get out quicker and don't spread disease." So that's what falling in love with your product is. It's not about getting a job or going into a career just because you want to make a lot of money. It's that, what are you good at? What do you want to do? And what does the business need? You want those three things to come together to create.
Frank, Jessica, who asked a question earlier, wrote in with more of a comment that I think leads to a question. She's really excited to see another BU alum working in corporate coffee sustainability, and she's excited to connect with you. You listed your email address here. Is that the best way for people to follow up with you?
Absolutely. Yep. Frank.LaRusso@fm.com. FFEM. Ethel Frank Forrest Dean.
Sorry, Frank. Just say that one more time for us. We heard you say your email address.
Frank.LaRusso@fm.com, and the FM is EFFEM.com. It's on this last slide that's up there.
We got that right on the screen there. Well, Frank, thank you so much for sharing your fascinating story with us and with the BU community. It's really inspiring to see that we've got some alumni who are been able to sort of tie corporate interests in with making a difference in the world. And I know for you, this is something that's incredibly personal, having had a chance to talk with you on more than one occasion about this. So thank you for not only for today, but for the work that you're doing to make the world a better place.
Thank you so much, everyone. Thanks, Jeff.
My thanks go out to our guests for participating today. I specifically want to thank those of you who have donated to BU in the past. We've got another excellent webinar coming up that I'm really excited for on November 30th. We're going to present 10 ways to have healthy and happy relationships at work. We've got a wonderful alumna who actually works as a relationship therapist who is going to be applying some really interesting principles of interpersonal relationships to work relationships. I encourage you to visit our website at www.bu.edu/alumni/events to see all of the things that are coming up over the next couple weeks, and you can sign up for that webinar as well. And as always, if you or any BU alum would be interested in presenting a professional development webinar or have a topic that you'd like to showcase for BU industry insiders, please feel free to contact me at the Alumni Relations Office or by email at jtmurphy@bu.edu. Thank you, everybody, for your time. Have a great day or a great evening wherever you might be.